Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Insider, brought to you by the home of fast free shipping. That's right, it's Vanishing Inc. My guest today is incredibly good at card tricks and is really, really nice. It's Andrew Frost. Andrew, how are you this morning?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm delightful, thank you for asking. Now, you were last on the show nearly 4 years ago in the middle of COVID's strange times. What have you been up to since then?
So I immediately after COVID, I worked for Darren Brown on Showman for he's well known at this point, I think. So I worked for him on Showman for a period of time, just kind of like moving furniture around the stage, but got to watch the show every night, which was like incredible. And then after that kind of ended, I started doing my own thing, mainly kind of like publishing tricks for the Magic community. Did a membership kind of like around the same time everybody started theirs. So there was like a bunch of us all doing that, which was actually quite fun at the time. So I've got a membership, and then I took a bit of time kind of to just think about what I wanted to do with Magic, because I didn't really know. And then I kind of realised that I wanted to perform Magic. So I started gigging a bit and didn't really love gigging. So I ended up deciding I wanted to perform Magic in an environment where people are paid to either come and see Magic or come and see me specifically. So that's what I'm kind of focusing on, with dipping my toes into the still kind of like creating stuff and distributing stuff for magicians. But yeah, kind of main focus now is more towards like the performing side of things.
What was it about the gigging that didn't resonate with you? Was it the interrupting people or what?
I think it's just a bad environment to perform Magic that I create. So I think just specifically for me, I very infrequently perform marketed effects. Most of the stuff that I perform is my own stuff, or like kind of like cherry picked or like curated of my like favorite magicians. So like I love Dennis Bear and I love like Yamfrish and stuff. So perform bits and pieces of their stuff, but when in those environments, it's very difficult. I was finding to get kind of like my stuff hitting in the same way as like an Omni deck would, or things. And basically, I realized I wasn't building stuff for that environment, and right. So it was never going to thrive. And particularly when you compare it to things like Omni deck and stuff like that, they're so well run in, and they're such great tricks that they can, like, if I wanted to do the gigging stuff, that's what I would do. I would just pick kind of like, 6, 7 incredibly strong tricks and just do them at every table. And I just can't, I can't do that. I don't know why, but it doesn't gel with me.
Sure. One of the things that I've heard that you're doing is this magician's table thing in London. What is it? Who's organising it, and how did you get involved?
So it's Sharky of Sharky and Long fame, and a producer called Tom. And basically, they noticed that there was no real place in London to see Magic, and I think that is a massive hole in the market. So what they did is they kind of reached out to a load of people that they love. So it's a bunch of people who are either kind of like well known in the gigging world or well known for like performing and stuff. And they've kind of collected us all together, and the actual show itself will be like 4 or 5 magicians that you see in a night. There's probably like 8, I think maybe even 8 or 12 in the room. So you'll see like 4 sets of like 15 minutes from magicians, and then on top of that you'll see like a show. So there's like an internal narrative, so like it's an immersive theatre experience basically, where I don't know, I think it's probably most similar to Speakeasy Magic in New York, but I haven't done that show, so I don't know if there is like an internal narrative or like an actual like theatre experience that you're experiencing at the same time. But that I think is the thing that maybe differentiates it, although I don't know.
And then Edinburgh, and your show Cards on the Table. Talk to us about that. When did you start developing it, and how did you develop it?
So when I finished Darren, I was kind of a bit lost, and what I did is I said, I'm going to take a year out to just go and be a better magician. So I travelled a load. I met a load of people that I think are some of the best magicians in the world, and just kind of sat down with them and tried to learn as much as I could about magic. So not necessarily about like particular styles of magic, just about magic in general. So I did like Trabam, Mario Lopez's convention, and I went over and met Jan Frisch, who I think is the best magician in the world. Like, I think it's just, I don't think there are people that are more prolific, but in terms of people actually doing creative and incredible magic that just is mind-blowing, I don't think there's anybody on earth that comes close. He's just incredible. So I went out and tried to meet all of these people that I love and just get better at it. And then I went to Edinburgh last year, kind of with the express thing of going, like, always been on my bucket list as a thing that I wanted to do. So I went specifically to go and have a look at venues and have a look at like what was available and how people have done it. And I met a load of people who were performing there, who were magicians, got a load of really good advice. And then on the back of that, started the process of designing a show and building it out from there.
So what's your creative process for making the show? The material selection, the story arc, script, blocking, directing. How do you do that?
So initially it was just me thinking what are really strong tricks, and that was basically it. So what are things that I know work within this environment and are good. And oftentimes I've got like either like a minor variation on it or like a little twist that makes it feel like mine, because I think that's really important. Like, you want to take ownership for the things or at least I do. I want to take ownership for the things that I'm performing on stage. So it was more kind of like a curation to begin with. Like, what do I already do? What do I know works well in that environment? I'd kind of like, since Edinburgh started the previous year, I ended up getting on stage a bunch of times, like just in between kind of like when I started doing it and actually me performing the show for the first time. I did a few like kind of like gang show things, some at the Magic Circle, some for a friend of mine called Tom Brace, who puts on these things called Late Night Magic. And so I was kind of working in material a little bit. And then it became, how do you sit? How can you invite somebody to sit in a room for an hour and watch just card tricks, which is that's tough. So there needs to be some kind of arc. There needs to be some kind of through line. And then it became about finding that, and then what works within that. So it's kind of like been I think most shows kind of go through that process of like, what are good tricks? And then the first kind of like intervention is like, what's the narrative? And then once you've done that, it's then like you're just kind of like playing about with like the script and writing it. And kind of like, I got up to a certain point with the show where I was like, I can't really do this alone. I need like and everybody had said, just hire a director. And so I got recommended a guy called Sam Lupton, who's a brilliant magician, like mentalist, but also is a kind of his main job is that he's a musical theatre performer and like has directed in the past. And so with his help, we've kind of like made this. He's been instrumental. I wouldn't have the show that I'm doing now without Sam. And that's a massive piece of advice for anybody, is like, just get a director and get a second pair of eyes on this, and somebody preferably who is either outside of your area of magic or somebody who isn't in magic at all. That would be like my biggest piece of advice.
But that, if people are listening and they're not about to do a show at Edinburgh but wouldn't mind doing a show, that doesn't need to necessarily be a huge expense, does it? Because there could be a friend or somebody somebody that did drama at college, or a local AmDram, what's it called in America, community theatre thing. It could be, you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of pounds to get that sort of help, but it's just having that second set of eyes.
Yeah, and I think also a second pair of eyes of somebody that you trust and also knows the I'm trying to do this without speaking in like theatrical terms because they massively turned me off. But I found them I found myself having started doing them with my director as a theatre person. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, if somebody can live in the world of the show and know exactly what your vision is, and then can work within that, then I think that's the thing. And that's what Sam was brilliant at. Was just we at the start we got in a rehearsal room, but the majority of it was just chatting. It was just chatting about the show, chatting about what the show should be from like my perspective. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, over time, he knew the world as much as I did. And then any creative decision that he makes, I can massively trust. So that doesn't need to be somebody who's like got loads of experience in the world of theatre. If that's your mate who you go, this is what I want this thing to be, and you trust their opinion, that's all it needs to be.
Yeah. Do you think doing the show with Darren and watching it from the wings every night was part of the thing that's, I want to do something like this. I want to have people pay money to come and know that they're seeing a show and come and see me. Do you think that influenced your decision to want to do your own show? Just living in Darren's world? Yeah,
in one way, yes. In another way, like, it absolutely put me off, because the reality is that no, not at all. Just he's brilliant. It's like the moment that you put yourself in that headspace, right? I know that you're not competing, but you're certainly comparing, and he's the best. He's the best performer. He's a world-class performer in any field, let alone magic. So when you start looking at that, you go, I can't do this. It's a bit like, I always think like there's a lot of stand-up comparisons, because it's probably the industry that's like most closely related. But like Richard Pryor destroyed a generation of comedians, and like George Carlin destroyed a generation of comedians, because so many people were trying to imitate him, right? Or imitate them. In magic, we've had this singular performer for like 30 years who's completely destroyed an art form. Like everybody's just doing mentalism like Darren Brown. Yeah. And even if they feel like they're doing things that are different, they're probably not realizing that they are just doing a version of something that Darren has done. Yeah. So, and having a 30-year career in one particular field of magic, it's so hard to not basically, they've left no stone unturned. So there's that, and then also you're watching this guy who is, got so much experience, is absolutely brilliant, is like a genius, is incredibly funny, and you're just going, I can't do any of that. Yeah. So I think it came into like the buzz of like being in a theatre full of people wanting to see magic is like amazing, but. Yeah, it was massively intimidating. It's ridiculous. He is just absurdly brilliant. So it's very, very difficult to even come close.
Now, as part of this reinvention from Instagram Move Monkey to doing shows, I don't mean Move Monkey in a disparative way.
No. That's what I was. Yeah, I was proudly that. I think
you changed your Instagram handle from Slightly Obsessed to Andrew Frost Magician, and you built up a big following with Slightly Obsessed. Yeah. What was that? Talk me through that thought process of that rebuild.
It's literally as simple as people are going to come and see the show, and then the idea of me at the end going, please follow me on social media, I'm at Slightly Obsessed. I think people are going to be, it's literally going to be SLIGHT can't find me, right? Because it was spelt like sleight of hand. So it's just the more I perform to real people, the more I just thought I should use my own name. And then the other thing is that I did like the brand when I was just like you said, like a Move Monkey. But as I've got kind of like more, as I've kind of like grown up like out of the Move Monkey stuff, it just doesn't feel like it's the right branding for me anymore. So I'd rather just go by my own name.
So what sort of magic do you enjoy doing? Obviously, you've said your own stuff and stuff that you've put your own wrinkles on, but talk me through what some of that stuff, talk me through what that is, as opposed to sitting there doing invisible passes or whatever it was you were doing. Slightly Obsessed.
When I moved to London, which would have been kind of like pre-pandemic, like would have been 2019, summer of 2019. The people that were my age were Ross Taylor, Ollie Mealing, Christian Grace, Alex Hansford, Brad Hodgins, Jack Ty. So those were the people. I now recognise that some of those guys are like the best card magicians in the world, right? Like, and most creative, coming up with the best stuff and doing it in a way that just felt really new and different and stripped all of the kind of like the archaic elements away. And they were just like normal people doing card magic. And what they gave me is they gave me an experience where I got to experience magic, like as a person who was doing magic, which I think is so rare. It's like as particularly like, you know, now years into it, I get it less and less and less and less because I care about such specifically niche things now. And then within that niche is the things that I'm going to be most experiencing magic with. So I can watch things like, you know, I can watch Mario Lopez, but that's not going to give me the same feeling as somebody showing me a card trick that really resonates with me. But I got to experience that feeling of magic basically again and again and again and again and again. And it was drilled into me. So I knew what the North Star was. I knew what I was aiming for. So, and I think that is the biggest difference for most magicians, is that the people that they spend time with aren't giving them that feeling. So I was just really fortunate, like where I was just getting that feeling over and over again, and like with really brilliantly structured tricks, really fooling premises, really just absolutely brilliant bits of magic. And so because I knew that feeling, that's what I wanted to give to other people. So all of the magic, maybe not all of the magic in the show, because some of it's designed to make me to like show off my skills, but particularly the second half of the show, the idea is that I'm doing these tricks to give people the feeling of magic. And it might not necessarily be the audience, it might just be somebody up on stage experiencing it with me. But that's the explicit goal is, and I know that sounds maybe a little bit ambiguous, but the tricks are designed in a way to try and have somebody experience that feeling, which I think is that's my goal now, is to really try and drill that into somebody.
That's a wonderful thing. What an admirable goal. Now, in the past, you've talked about the importance of a hook, a reason why someone should care about what you're going to be doing. Williamson talks about all the time. How do you look for or find those hooks in the plots and material that you're creating now?
I think it's kind of stayed the same, if not very similar. It all starts from like a real place, and often you can find the hook in the narrative of the trick. So something like where cards are going to be changing on the table. I think, from my opinion as a performer, that doesn't need much in terms of a hook, right? It might need a misdirect, like you might need something like, you know, I'm going to take 4 cards out of the deck, and none of them are going to be your card, and then we'll do something from that position, right? If cards are like changing on the table, it's such a simple premise that nobody needs an explanation. Right. But I think if you're doing something slightly more complex, or you're doing something with a procedure, that's when a hook really comes into play. So like things like, I don't really perform spelling tricks, but if you're like, and I've got one actually in a download that I'm doing with you guys, which I really love. But I think sometimes like those are the kinds of tricks that you need to have a hook for. Those are the kinds of tricks where you need to justify it, where it can become interesting. But I think now the thing that I'm trying to get better at is recognizing whether or not I love the trick because I've created it, or I love the trick because it's a good trick.
Yeah.
And sometimes I find like if it needs a hook, or if it needs like a lot of justification, then I think you have to start going like, okay, start questioning whether or not, how good is this thing? Because I'm having to do a lot of work to get it in front of people. And sometimes that pays off, but yeah, the reality is that I think now, if a trick can't stand up with like the hook being basically this is what I'm going to do, or like a very tiny misdirect, I'm a bit resistant to it.
That's interesting. Okay, so I've had because you were on, and because you do beautiful sleight of hand and teach people sleight of hand. Here's the new question thing that I was thinking about. I want one word or one sentence tips on the following sleights.
Okay.
I'd like you to give us one thing that maybe you often see people doing, in your opinion, wrong, or one simple thing that people should do to improve that sleight.
Cool.
Okay?
All right, sweet.
Rattle through them and
Great.
see where
That sounds
goes,
great.
Okay?
Yeah, this is
so
fun.
Number one, the glide.
Think about it like a second deal.
Number two.
Can I just emphasize that a bit? Instead of here, it's here. And that changes everything. So instead of it being like this, come up here and do it like this. I just did it, and you just don't think it's the same move.
Okay, so for audio listeners,
sorry.
Andrew's holding the deck in a traditional move for the glide, and then turning his hand 180 degrees, nearly.
Yeah, put palm up to the ceiling, like a face, like you're doing a face-up second deal. Any of those same glide mechanics, if you're doing the Vernon one or anything like that, a traditional one using the pinky finger. Any of those, they just look more natural instead of like having this kind of weird, like you're holding an object face down and it looks like you're doing something. It just looks like you're holding the deck normally.
I would see, that's so good. I'm looking forward to the rest of these already. Top palm. God. Vernon's topping the deck and Larry Jennings' bevel palm. I think those are the two that I kind of like combined into the one that I use. So I think people actually, in fact, a tip on palming in general, right? This is the thing. So rather than getting it into top palm, which like obviously is very tricky, but once you have an idea about, I think palming in general, it becomes a lot easier. The reason why people hold their hand so stiff, right, is because they're trying to hold the card in place. Right. This is an exercise I used to do, which is keep relaxing until the card drops out, and you just realise I'm barely holding the card and I can move my hand around. So for once listeners, Andrew's using the points of the base of your thumb and the tip of his pinky finger, so that diagonal pressure.
So if you hold the palm like this and you let go, you realise you barely need to hold the card in place. Like, so you can be, the reason why people feel so tense is because they're trying to hold the card in place. If you know that you can relax, you can do all of that Giancarlo Scalia, like the card doesn't exist because you're just interacting with objects normally. I'm not anywhere near as good as that guy. Jeez, man, he's proper special, particularly with palming. He's mad. But yeah, that in particular was one thing. I also think that again, this goes with everything. Find your own way of doing it. Like, read everything, combine the things that you like most, and then figure out your own way of doing it. Also, then you don't have to release that. Just know that you've got your own thing. And just do it for the sake of that. Just do it because everybody's hands are different, like mechanically. So just figure out your own way of doing it. And when you look in the mirror, be like absolutely brutal with yourself. Like, don't go, oh, that's good enough, because they'll be looking at my face. Just go like, okay, can if somebody looked down at that point accidentally, would they be able to see something I'm doing? And that's it.
The pass.
It's a straddle pass. It's not you're not clipping it with the fingers. You're clipping it between. You're not clipping it between the pinky and the ring finger. You're clipping it between the index finger and the base of your pinky. So like that. And then that allows you to be super relaxed when doing the move.
DPS.
The higher that you can get the deck in your hand. The deeper that you can get the deck in your hand, the easier the move will be. And also, you aren't removing the card. You're not removing the card. You're letting everything else move around the card that you're trying to palm. So bring the card forward, and then your hand doesn't have to move. So bring the deck forward, and your hand doesn't have to move.
Side step.
Like this. Angle your hand like this. Such that your hand is at 45 degrees, so that when you go to remove the card, it blocks into place already. So then when you remove the card, you don't have to do anything.
Double lift. Pick one. One thing from all the things you know about a double lift, Andy.
If you're not going to put the time into learning a push-off double lift, look at how people actually handle cards and turn cards over. We have been indoctrinated into the idea of the Vernon double lift and this kind of like bookend turn. And the reality is that nobody handles cards like that outside of magicians. So you end up looking like a magician. You end up looking like you can handle cards, which is great. But if you want something to be deceptive, you want it to look like it's the way that everybody else does it. So like so many people have stumbled upon like this way of doing a double lift, right? Which is like a spectator style double. So I'm like kind of like picking it up from the back and turning it over that way. But it can be as simple as like doing any other technique and then just dropping the card from above, and that just makes it seem as though it's just a bit more casual. So if you can do that, then the double's significantly more hidden, I think, just like being casual and dropping it.
And I had written this before, but my next one that you meant as to call it back to just there was a push-off. What's one thing people do wrong, or a piece of advice for making a push-off better?
The way that I do the push-off, it's a mechanical move. Like it's not. Obviously it's tricky. Obviously there's like subtleties and stuff, but I can do it with as long as the deck isn't like stuck to each other, cards aren't stuck to each other, I can pretty much do it with any deck. And so I think it's about like recognizing what you can control in that move, and then trying to get better at those things, or how those things can get more consistent. But that's just a tricky move.
See, that's good. That's my new sequence, my new segment, and I think that's a great.
I think that's great.
5 minutes of content right there. Talking of new segments, because my daughter is on holiday. Hang on one second. Isis, come and ask your question. Because my daughter is on holiday at the moment, instead of doing the podcast, she's a magician and she wanted to come and ask you a question. So she's going to stop playing Minecraft with her friend Riley and come down and ask you a question. Bear with me 1 second. We'll edit this bit.
All right.
Isis, meet Andy. Andy, meet Isis.
Hello.
Maybe you should.
Hello, Isis.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for asking.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask you a question. So,
Sure.
what would you say to young magicians like me? How would you inspire them?
I would say, I'll give you two things,
Thank you.
and then that way you can take the one you want. So number one is watch loads of magic from people who are brilliant performers, and you'll learn as much from that as you will from watching a magic tutorial. And there are so many people on YouTube that you can find that are really, really brilliant performers. So you can literally just do a YouTube search, just ask people you respect or you know are really good at magic, and just say, who are the people that you like? And then just go and watch loads of videos of them and just watch how they do magic. And you'll learn so much from doing it. The other thing is to just do the magic that you love. Don't worry about what other people think or say. Do the magic that inspires you and do the magic that you love the most. I got told when I was first starting that like I shouldn't just do card tricks at all, and that's all I do now, and I love that. And so yeah, those are my two pieces of advice. Do what you love and don't worry about anything else, and make sure that you watch loads and loads of people who are brilliant performers.
Thank you, that's really inspired me.
Good. All right. Well, I'm glad. Thanks, Isis.
Thank you.
Now, you did tease it at the top of the show.
I did, yeah.
A new download collection that is just about to drop, or has dropped, depending when this releases, from you on VanishingInkMagic.com. 10 sleights and 10 moves, and it's called Stay Frosty. Can you tell us about this content?
Yeah, so It's kind of I guess it's a slight departure. Oh God, that's a punny thing that I don't want to do.
I'm leaving that in, man.
Yeah, it's a bit of a departure away from what I would normally do for magic companies and kind of like how I've built my reputation. So normally it would be, let's look at moves, and then kind of like you would sandwich a trick on top, right? And this is kind of the other way round, in that it's very much like kind of like a trick based thing. And it's tricks that I've really, really loved, and I think are pretty good. So it's those tricks, and then on top of that, it's all the sleights that you would need to perform those tricks, and then some kind of like quick tips and tricks. I guess it's not that quick, is it? It's kind of an in-depth look into some of the trickier sleights as well. So like I just give like some advice on the cover pass, which is always a move that is really intimidating. But actually, when you start looking at it mechanically and breaking it down, you can actually figure out a way to do it where it just feels like a classic pass, as long as you get into a certain position. It just like, because the thing that's really tricky with things like the cover pass is that the top card's in the way.
Yeah.
And it's how do you find a way to isolate that card in place without impeding on the rest of the sleight. And so I kind of talk about a way that you can approach the move where that basically happens. You can just do it like a normal classic pass. But yeah, like I said, the moves are in aid of the tricks, and so I just absolutely I think it's a really, really brilliant download. I'm really proud of it, and it's got a lot of really good stuff in it.
So what level is it for?
So there's a real mix on there. Like there's stuff that is almost entirely self-working. Right. You've got to kind of keep track of where you're at. I'm not going to say it's like, it's not like, I can't think of a tricky, it's not like an invisible deck, right? Where you can literally just pick it up and just do it. There are some things that you've got to keep track of, and you've probably got to be a little bit comfortable with a deck of cards in your hands, but a beginner, I think, would be able to follow along and just do it immediately. And it's got everything from that all the way up until, we're talking about the cover pass, so it's like quite advanced stuff. So it's a real breadth of material. But the main thing that shines through all of it is it's stuff that I either perform now or have performed for a long period of time. I just maybe don't perform in that context now. So it's all stuff that's kind of like pretty worked in, and stuff that I know is really strong.
Well, I've seen the trailer, and I really, really, really want to see the product now. But I haven't finished editing it. It's talking about the cover pass and practicing it, and practice in general. Do you think? And sorry if it's possibly a stupid question, but do you think there's a right way to practice that you've found, or if it's easier, what works for you when you're learning a new move?
The reality is, it's been probably quite a bit of time since I've learned a new move. Like a lot of the sleights that I perform now are like stuff that I've done because I've done Magic for like 13 years now, 14 years. So all of the stuff that it's kind of all fairly embedded and like not stuff that I know. And also I've built up the dexterity and like muscles in my hands so that anything that I learn now is like I can pick up relatively quickly. And but when I tell you what, here's probably the way that I should approach it. The thing that I find really tricky is having a script to remember, doing a trick, and interacting with the spectators like a human being. Right. So and that is basically the same as when I was first learning how to do a sleight, right? So if I kind of, maybe I'll break down the sleight first, and then I'll talk about how I've approached the bits for the show. When I first learned a sleight, it was basically like just learning mechanics of a move. So I sit there and I would read the book, and I'd figure out where my hands are going and where everything is, and try and work out what they're trying to tell me in the book. Then I would sit there and I would just play with the move for a while, just making sure that I've got the mechanics of the move basically down to a point where I don't have to think about it too much, or it's like flowing. Then from that point, I would go, okay, so what should this move look like? Right? What is this move either imitating, or is it meant to appear like nothing's happening?
Yeah.
What's this meant to look like? And once I had that, I would then do the real thing versus the false thing, and I would just do them back to back. So I would just go and I would try and create a context for that as well, because I don't really sit and work on moves like in isolation. I try and figure out maybe it's not how they would work in a trick, but I'd at least go like, I'd pretend there's a spectator in front of me here, and then I would like shift to like look at a different spectator, and maybe that's when a move happens, or I would lay the deck down on the table and I'd try and create a context for it, and then I'd do the real thing like without the move, and then I'd do the move, and I'd do those back to back and see how similar they were. And then the idea was I would then look at that footage. I'd video that.
You're filming that. So you're turning, turning over a double, for example.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Yeah. So I'm turning over a single, turning over a double, and then I'd look at the two things back to back, and then I mean, iPhones or like whatever smartphone you're using is brilliant because you can literally just stop it and go frame by frame, like on your scroll wheel. So I would just look and I'll go, okay, right, that's slightly different. And then I would just adjust the move until it became as close to kind of a representation of the thing that I'm trying to imitate. So that would be, that's the way that I approach practice. Now I understand that is, for some people, incredibly boring. But for me, that is like that's some of the most enjoyable bits of Magic for me. So now I've kind of applied that same thing to performance, in that what I'll do is I'll try and learn my script, which I'm terrible at doing. So I'll try and learn my script. Then I will have my trick that I know, like I can do without thinking. So then I'm trying to combine those two things, and then I have to simulate the person being there. So I have to be like, what's your name? Make up a name, and then try and interact with them saying their name the entire time, and all of that. So you can apply these same techniques like basically across the board to all of those different things. But like I'm a bit nerdy in like because I used to be a teacher. I have like kind of a bit of a more kind of like academic and evidence-based approach to these things, and know what works, and like you can imitate all of this kind of stuff. So yeah, it was that's the way that I've approached. That's the way I used to approach practice, and now obviously it's slightly different. I still do the filming thing, still watch all of that. But yeah, that's the biggest takeaway, I think, is filming yourself.
Wonderful, thank you. Andy, we're out of time. We always end the show with 4 quick fire questions. You answered these questions 4 years ago, and before you came on, I went back to hear your answers because I want to know whether they've changed.
That would be great.
Favourite pizza topping?
What do I can't remember. I'm trying to remember what I said. I shouldn't be doing that, should I?
No, don't try and remember. Now,
favourite pizza topping.
On the 26th of July, 2024, what's your favourite pizza
topping? I really like a margarita pizza. I just like cheese and tomato, and that done really well.
Your twist 4 years ago was the addition of... See, it's just like your card Magic. You need a little twist. Your twist was it has to have fresh basil on it. Oh,
it does. Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it does.
Favourite movie?
God, that's so hard. What do I really like? God, that's so hard. Let me think. I can't think of anything right. Well, number one, I can't think of any movies right now. But
any at all.
Let me.
let alone ones you like.
Yeah, let alone ones I like. I imagine I would have said something like Pulp Fiction, but I don't think that's true now.
You didn't say that.
I didn't. No. Okay. God, why I can't think of any movies I like. Why don't I? God, I don't know.
Just obsessed with your show. What you said before was Godfather 2.
Yeah. Was what? Godfather 2? Yeah, that's the intelligent answer, isn't it? You're never going to get anybody, and nobody's going to bite back on that. If you go, oh yeah, my favourite film's Godfather 2, everybody's going to go, okay, well that's the right answer, isn't
So
it?
Pulp Fiction I'd say is in the similar league. It's
Similar
difficult
league,
to find
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
that has an issue with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, God, I actually want to know what my favourite film is. I just can't think of anything off the top of my head that's
We'll
actually.
fix it in post. Email me afterwards, and I'll drop it. I'll be fake Andy, and we'll drop it in. Favourite person or people that make music?
Oh man, there's a guy called Matt Corby who I absolutely love.
You're consistent.
Yeah, that hasn't changed.
And finally, who would you rather fight? One massive Andy or 100 tiny Joshuas?
I think I'm going to take Andy.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take Andy.
Andrew Frost are nothing but consistent, just like your peachy smooth sleight of hand. Where can people find out about the Magician's Table thing?
magicianstablelive.com is where you can look at the kind of like what the show's about and all of that kind of stuff, and then also book tickets.
And when does that start?
That will start 3rd of September, I think, is the first show, but it will run up. I can't remember exactly when it runs up until at the moment, but but from there.
And your Edinburgh show, where can people get tickets for that?
They can get tickets from the Pleasant website, the name of the show is Cards on the Table, and that starts. The first show is actually the 31st of July. I don't know when this is coming out, but 31st of July, and then it will run all the way up until the 26th of August. And the way that Edinburgh really works is that the reality is that I know that most of the people that listen to this podcast will not be going up to Edinburgh to the Fringe. However, they might know somebody who does. So if you do know somebody who's going up to the Fringe, or you just kind of like maybe want to get the word out, that would be incredibly helpful, and maybe I could then do the show next year as well.
Andrew Frost, good luck with both of those things, and the
Thanks,
download,
mate.
and everything in general in your life. Thank you so much for being so lovely and kind and generous as ever.
Oh, that's all good. Yeah, thanks. You too, man.
Boom. Stop.